Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Holidays to all of us. This is Thomas Miller with a special Christmas Day Fun Astrology podcast. Because, after all, we wouldn't be celebrating this special day were it not for the planets above our heads, particularly the brightest of them all, our sun. And regardless of your beliefs and whether you have a spiritual or religious practice, I think we'd all agree that this time of year has a special magic about it. For our Jewish friends, they celebrate Hanukkah, which is also a celebration of lights, marking the rebirth of their temple in Jerusalem. Hanukkah dates back to the 2nd century BC, when, during the festivities of the rededication, the temple's menorah only had enough oil to burn for 1 day. Yet, miraculously, it burned for 8 days, and that is what is still celebrated today, a festival of miracles and of lights. For Christians, today obviously is the birthday celebration of Jesus, who, according to the New Testament Gospels, would eventually be crucified for the sins of mankind, would be buried, and rise from the dead 3 days later. In the New Testament, Jesus was the light of the world, thus another celebration of light. But to appreciate the context and background of how this time of year became so special, we have to turn to astrology. And one of the two most elevated days, to those of us who connect the sky as above to events here on Earth, so below. The December solstice was last Saturday, the shortest day of the year above the equator, longest below, and one of 2 times each year when the days pivot from short to long, or long to short. The other being, of course, the June solstice, marking summer above the equator. Astrologically, these are the times that the sun enters 2 of the cardinal signs, Cancer in June and Capricorn in December. So right there, folks, without astrology, we would not have the magic of this season. Because to fully appreciate what this celebration was historically, we have to go back long before the birth of Jesus. Let's presume we were ancient agrarian cave dwellers, literally focused on daily survival. Not how late department stores are open so we can grab those last-minute stocking stuffers. For us, thousands of years ago, we had to mesh with all of nature as a matter of survival itself. Along the way, we began observing the sky, and even way back then observed that there were patterns that occurred consistently in the sky that affected events here on Earth. Back then, it was mostly about growing crops and using the changing seasons to plant, grow, and harvest. As we learned more about this special yet mysterious connection between sky and earth, we observed a phenomenon that became incredibly important to us, truly a matter of life and death. Because, here above the equator, December became intolerably cold, harsh, life-threatening, especially for the frail among us, newborn children, our elderly and sick. It was a tough time, and many did not make it to spring. But we observed that our sun, the life-giver of warmth, daylight, and crops, was in the sky the shortest time around the 3rd week of December. We also observed that the sun, unlike any other time of the year, did not seem to move in the sky for 3 full days around this special time. It basically held its position. Then, after the 3rd day, it began moving again, and voila, the days started increasing in duration. With our limited knowledge of what was going on, we thought the sun had died for 3 days. And then, almost miraculously, to the most early observers, it was reborn. And we would know that heat would once again warm our cold bones, our crops could be planted, and we could soon enough harvest enough food for the next cold season. So initially, this December solstice was a celebration of the hope of survival, the sun's pivot. But we also knew there would be some long, cold nights ahead, and shivering survival would be the focus until the sun's prevailing warmth returned. Fast forward now, thousands of years, and we humans kind of got the hang of these seasons and survival better than our ancestors. So instead of hiding in our caves to survive, we found yet another way to enjoy this pivot of our life-giving sun. We partied. It became the biggest celebration of the year. We ate and drank and danced and, well, we did things that humans do. We lived it up. Once again, astrology was part of the celebration because we called it Saturnalia. Why? Because Saturn was our god of the crops, the planting and the growing and the harvesting of our food. We also had established Saturn as the quote-unquote ruler of the constellation Capricorn, which now we could easily pick out of the sky. So when the sun entered Capricorn, Saturn began to take over for the next 2 tracks of the sun through Capricorn and Aquarius. It truly was a time of rebirth. Then another shift in our collective focus. A Roman emperor, Constantine, adopted a new belief system that would change everything. A teacher, a prophet, a healer, leader, mystic from their conquered land of Canaan, Judah, Israel, Palestine. It had many names and meanings over the years. But this Yeshua, now known as Jesus, and his followers would become the official state religion of the vast Mediterranean region. And to elevate this new system and its leader, Constantine, in the midst of his reign as emperor, would morph Saturnalia into a new celebration, a birthday party for the founder of his new state religion. And yet, still, around this time, when the sky changes signs and rulers, the sun still stands still for 3 days in an apparent tomb. Then, for the next season of festivals we celebrated around fertility and the new birth in the spring of flowers and green grass, the emperor adopted the new life celebration of Jesus' acclaimed resurrection from the dead. And just like our life-giving sun, S-U-N, this sun, S-O-N, would die, the winter cold, was buried, solstice, and was reborn, the celebration of fertility, 3 days later, miraculously, just like the sun in the sky. And through the death and rebirth process, just like our ancients, we would find hope that we would all be saved by the coming harvest. And even though some of our stories may have been adjusted a little, what has always occurred with precision and always will, the sun, at its darkest and coldest time of year, stands still, dies, enters the tomb for 3 days around the winter solstice, and then begins to rise longer and eventually brighter and warmer each day. And thus, without the observation of these events, which we call astrology, there would be no Christmas, or no need for a festival of lights, or like that menorah of so long ago, no celebration of the miracles we all feel this time of year. As above, so below, truly. So as the ancient Romans would have said, quite literally, Yo, Saturnalia, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to us all.